Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the English Everyday podcast, where learning English is fun, easy, and doesn't feel like studying. I'm Nicole, your host.
And I'm Jason, your friendly co-host. Today, we're talking about something we've all been through.
Let me ask you, have you ever stopped yourself from doing something you really wanted to do, like wearing a cool outfit, sharing your ideas, or trying something totally new, because a little voice in your head said, "But what will people think?"
Oh yeah, absolutely. That feeling? Been there so many times. I've skipped out on things just because I was too worried about how I'd be judged.
You're not alone, Jason. We've all been there. It's like this constant question in our minds. Will people laugh at me? Will they think I'm weird? It doesn't matter if it's something small, like what you wear, or something big, like following a dream. You end up holding back.
Exactly. And here's the funny part. Most of the time, the people we're so worried about, they're busy worrying about themselves.
So true. And that's why I'm so excited about today's episode. We're going to dig into why we care so much about other people's opinions, how it stops us from being our true selves, and best of all, how to let it go.
And it gets even better. We've got Marco with us. Not only is he a vocabulary expert, but he's also an amazing storyteller. His story today is going to speak to so many of you.
Oh, definitely. Marco's story is all about facing the fear of judgment and learning to stop worrying way too much about what other people think. It's inspiring, relatable, and might just make you see things in a whole new way.
And don't forget, Marco will also teach you some key English phrases to help you talk about confidence and overcoming fear. It's a win-win. Improve your English while boosting your confidence.
Yep, so get comfy, grab your favorite drink, and get ready for an episode that just might change how you see yourself and the world around you. All right, Marco, it's all yours.
Thanks, guys. Hello, listeners. Today's episode is a little bit different. You will be improving not only your listening skills, but also your reading skills at once. So, I want to take you on a little journey, a story about a boy, a dream, and a lot of fear. And yes, that boy was me. It's a crisp autumn morning. I'm 16 years old, sitting on the edge of my bed, staring at a pair of tap shoes. That's right, tap shoes. Let me rewind a bit. For as long as I could remember, I'd been fascinated by tap dancing. Watching those dancers on stage, their feet moving so fast, creating music with every step. It felt like magic. And I wanted to be a part of it. But there was a problem. None of my friends danced. In fact, they thought dancing was, well, uncool. And in high school, fitting in felt like the most important thing in the world. One day, I saw a flyer for a beginner tap class at the community center. My heart skipped a beat. This was my chance. But then, the doubts crept in. What if I'm terrible? What if people laugh at me? What if I go and someone I know sees me? For weeks, I made excuses. I'll go next week, I told myself. I'm too busy right now. But deep down, I knew the truth. I was scared. Finally, one Saturday morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed the tap shoes, took a deep breath, and walked into that community center. Now, here's where it gets interesting. I was the only teenager in the class. Everyone else was either a little kid or a retiree. At first, I felt so out of place. But then, the music started. The instructor showed us a simple shuffle step, and I gave it a try. And you know what? I wasn't great. In fact, I was awful. But I was having so much fun. For the first time in years, I wasn't worried about what anyone else thought. I was just focused on learning, on moving, on the joy of trying something new. Fast forward to the end of the class, and something amazing happened. One of the older ladies in the group came up to me and said, "You've got potential, young man. Keep at it." That small bit of encouragement changed everything for me. I kept going to that class every week, and over time, I got better. By the end of the year, I was performing in a local recital. Tap shoes, jazz hands, and all. The moral of the story? Most of the fears we have about what people think are not real. They're just stories we tell ourselves. And the few people who do notice, they're often much kinder than we imagine. So, listeners, if there's something you've been holding back on because of fear, let this be your sign. Take that first step. You never know where it might lead. Now let's hear what Nicole and Jason have to say about all this. Back to you, guys.
Geez, Marco, that story was amazing. I could see you in that room with your tap shoes.
Seriously, Marco, you had me hooked. And I love the part where you said most of our fears are not real. I can totally relate to that.
Me too. I think we all have those moments where we stop ourselves because of what we think people might say.
Uh-huh, for sure. Like, remember last year when I wanted to start a YouTube channel? I spent months planning it but didn't upload a single video, simply because I was afraid of the comments.
No way. What changed?
Honestly, one day I just thought, what's the worst that could happen? I posted the video and guess what? The comments were mostly positive.
That's such a great example. And it's exactly what Marco was saying. Most people either don't care as much as we think, or they're supportive.
Yeah, totally. But why do you think we care so much in the first place, Nicole?
I think it's partly human nature. We're social creatures, right? We want to fit in, be liked, and avoid standing out too much.
Yeah, and I think social media makes it worse. It's like we're constantly on stage, performing for an audience that's always watching.
Yup, exactly. But here's the thing. The happiest people I know are the ones who focus on what makes them happy, not what others think.
Oh yeah, completely true. All right, let's give our listeners some tips to stop caring so much about what others think.
Oh, right. Great idea. Okay, here's tip number 1. Challenge your thoughts. When you catch yourself overthinking, ask, is this fear even real?
Uh-huh, most of the time, our fears are just stories in our heads.
Exactly. Here's tip number 2. Surround yourself with positive people. The more you're around supportive friends, the less other opinions will matter.
That's completely true. And here's tip number 3. Focus on what you love. When you're doing something that brings you joy, other people's opinions fade into the background.
Oh, I love that. And finally, tip number 4, learn to laugh at yourself. If you can find humor in your mistakes, you'll feel a lot lighter.
Speaking of which, I've got a funny story. Last week, I accidentally wore 2 different shoes to a meeting. At first, I panicked, but then I just laughed it off and said, "Hey, I'm starting a new trend."
Oh, geez, that's hilarious. But honestly, that's such a great example of not taking yourself too seriously.
I know, right?
Okay, listeners, it's time for Marco to come back with his vocabulary segment. Over to you, Marco.
Thanks, Nicole. All right, listeners, let's look at some key phrases from today's episode. Hold you back. To stop you from doing something. For example, don't let fear hold you back from chasing your dreams. Fit in. To feel accepted. For example, she changed her outfit to fit in with her friends. Take a risk. To try something even if it's scary. For example, starting a new hobby can be scary, but it's worth taking a risk. Supportive friends. Friends who encourage you. For example, supportive friends can help you feel more confident. Be yourself. To act naturally and authentically. For example, it's important to be yourself and not worry about impressing others. Now, listeners, here's a challenge. Choose one of these phrases and use it in a sentence this week. Practice makes perfect. Back to you, Nicole.
Thanks, Marco. Those phrases are super helpful for our listeners.
Yes, definitely. And listeners, remember, the more you practice, the more confident you'll feel. Not just only in English, but also in life.
Absolutely. If Marco's story inspired you, take that first step toward whatever you've been holding back on.
That's right. And don't forget to download our free PDF in the description. It's packed with key phrases, practice exercises, and more.
Thank you for spending your time with us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a like, subscribe, and share it with your friends or family who need a little encouragement.
And tell us, what's one thing you've been holding back on that you're ready to try? Leave us a comment. We'd love to hear your stories.
For the next episode, we'll be talking about building new habits and staying consistent. Trust me, you don't want to miss it.
We'll see you in the next episode of the English Everyday Podcast.
And as always, keep learning, keep growing, and keep dancing to the rhythm of your dreams. Bye, everyone.